Spigot is flawed. Very flawed. Let's talk about myths, cons, and more cons of plain on Spigot. Yeah, I know there are cases where it is a necessary evil. I'll talk about it as well. Note, by Spigot I also mean its parent, Bucket, and all their forks, like Paper Spigot for example. They share the same fundamental problems. And it does not include Fabric or Forge, by the way. More on this later. Let's start with the main myth prompted by Spigot itself. Spigot is vanilla. Quote, it is a modified Minecraft server based on Craft Bucket, and consistent with vanilla Minecraft game mechanics. This is a complete lie. My first encounter with Spigot breaking things happened 2 years ago. I saw Izuma dropping concrete powder on top of fences to make them float, to make a quote-unquote concrete powder slabs of sorts. I immediately jumped to the Spigot server I was playing at that time, dropped concrete on top of a fence, and it snapped to a fence. I jumped to my single-player testing world, and it worked there. Not that long ago, I have made a mob farm on Escalia, but I have noticed that all mobs were just spawning in mid-air, and I made sure I am not standing over 128 blocks away from them. Later, I have made that exact farm in my own survival world, and it works just fine. Not to mention, the amount of mobs was far smaller than in vanilla even if I was alone on Escalia server. But later I have found out something very daunting. Spigot skips ticks when it lags. It does not delay them, no. It just acts as they never existed, and it completely breaks any redstone contraption. Let me show why. Let's say you have a double piston extender. Normally, it acts like this. Step 1 and step 2. And to retract, then step 3, step 4, step 5, and step 6. Not that hard, but that's how it will be on Spigot. Step 1, step 2, step 5, because steps 3 and 4 were missing, and step 6. Ta-da! You have a broken redstone contraption. Here's a direct comparison. And another one. I really want you to understand how severe this problem is. On Escalia running Paper Spigot, I have noticed that I occasionally find sorted types of items in an unsorted section. It means for some reason items skip the place they're supposed to be in. Talga's sorting system design just cannot fully break, fortunately, but it can malfunction. Same with piston bolts, by the way. Occasionally, my minecart wasn't pushed for the entire piston bolt, which never occurs in pure vanilla. To be fair, Paper Spigot said they have removed this quote-unquote feature of skip ticks, but inconsistent redstone is still a thing on Paper Spigot. I have observed that on Escalia plenty of times. By surprise, we can tolerate that unstable behavior because it runs better. Well, this is another myth. Sort of. Yes, it has some optimizations. For example, Paper Spigot had moved light updates to a separate thread about 2 years before Mojang did it. And that's very important because you had some nasty edge cases where a single person could completely log out an entire server. However, the main way Spigot optimizes things is altering behavior of the game. You can have less mob spawning, you can have ticks being skipped, entity tags being disabled when they are not in vanilla, and the list goes on and on. Just look at this config for Spigot. Wait a second, you can change the hopper check and transfer rates? That will break every single sophisticated contraption that uses hoppers in them. And we have even more config options for Paper Spigot. Oh boy. Also, you know what most server admins do when they set up a server? They look for the most performance optimized config out there. There are even paid configs. Obviously, those aren't made with anyone but casuals in mind, because what do commercial servers want? More players at the same time in the same server, of course, because that makes more money. Note, I don't accuse all Spigot-based servers of being about making money. There are great servers to play. I'm just saying that Spigot and its community are built primarily with commercial servers in mind. But surprise, we need Spigot to run those useful plugins. To be fair, if you're running a semi-public server, like a server for Twitch subscribers, you would really like to have plugins like Core Protect, for example, because even if people would like to trust each other, you cannot trust that many people 100%. But plugins themselves introduce changes to mechanics as well. For example, I recall a plugin that was supposed to solve the lag coming from mobs by stacking them. This messed up tons of things, mob farms in particular, especially because they had combined health. Or my flying machine at Escalia broke because it ran into clean boundaries. I think you get the idea. Spigot breaks things, but most importantly, you never know where and when it will break things. Because each server has individual configs and individual plugin set, each server behaves differently, so you just can't design a contraption with Spigot in mind. You cannot prepare. You always have to test things while you're actually doing things in the live version. Well, no, you can't, because those things are not deterministic, and Minecraft's very deterministic nature is why people love technical Minecraft in the first place. But now's the question, what do? The server you have spent so much time on probably not going to teach Spigot, even if they are aware of everything I've just said. Yeah, unfortunately, you have to make a choice between playable mechanics and being able to play on that server. Sadly, there is no alternative platform for semi-public and public servers that has enough support and plugins. I have made my choice, and server admins made their choice for those who will continue playing on that server. But you know what would be nice though? Not misleading people by calling Spigot vanilla. Come on, server admins, it is something you can actually do. This is my main issue with Spigot. Well, two issues actually. First, it pretends to be vanilla, while it isn't. And second, it is used everywhere. Good luck finding a server not running a fork of Bukkit that will last for more than a month. You know, there are Spigot-based servers which aren't trying to mimic vanilla, like minigame servers for example. It is totally fine. Because they provide completely custom experience, it is obvious that vanilla mechanics probably won't work. People don't play bedwars to build automatic storage systems. Let's mention other platforms like Forge, Lightloader, Rift, and Fabric. Supposedly, Fabric and Lightloader don't mess up with vanilla behavior at all, but there are reports of Rift and Forge changing some things. I have not experienced that with either 1.12 Forge or 1.15 Fabric, and given the type of contraptions I make, you are probably unlikely to encounter that as well. Of course, I test all my contraptions in pure vanilla as well though. But of course, if you would install mods, there is always a chance that they change something unexpected. So, yeah, don't play on Spigot if you can. And if you run a server, consider something different. Fabric with carpet mod, for example, quite truthful to vanilla game, but with some interesting features like movable tile entities or farmable shulkers. Bye bye.